Hey everyone, I'm Candace and welcome to I Am Not a Doctor, where I am not a medical professional. But I love sifting through the science so you don't have to. Today we are going to talk about diet labels and how they can hurt you. How naming your diet can cause a lot of things like anxiety, identity issues, a cult-like mentality, and keep you from ultimately hitting your health goals. When you start a new way of eating, it's really important that you find other people to connect with because most of the time when you start a new way of eating, you're trying to fix a health concern that you have. If you're doing this on your own, you really want to get feedback from other people. You want to make sure that you're following the guidelines, and it's just nice to sort of either commiserate about the same problems and also get education from people who have potentially done it longer. You can get some encouragement in that way, and when you have community, ultimately, it can help you stay on track. The problem is, a lot of times, helpful communities can actually impact you a lot more negatively than you may imagine. When we seek out this community, we start to label ourselves. You'll start to say things like, I'm a vegan, I'm a carnivore, I'm paleo. We start saying these I am statements. Anyone who's into affirmations or manifesting is gonna understand that these I am statements are really powerful because when you say I am statements, they actually cause physical changes in your brain associated with self-processing, and ultimately they impact your view of yourself. So you're no longer, I am Candace, I am a human, I'm a dog mom, I'm not any of these things anymore. I am, insert your diet. Your brain starts to identify yourself, your identity, with the label of this diet. It actually starts a neurological change in your brain. Your self-worth starts to be wrapped up in what your meal plan looks like. This is really dangerous because what if you decide your meal plan needs to change? How does that affect your self-esteem if you accidentally eat something that maybe has a condiment or a spice that you're not supposed to have? How do you feel about yourself when you've eaten that food, even if you enjoyed that food, even if it didn't actually physically bother you? How does that affect your self-worth when we use these I am statements, I am this diet? And one of the really scary things about that is in all of the diets that I'm familiar with, you would think it would be like a really clear outline, right? Like this is vegan, this is keto, this is carnivore. But you'll see if you've been entrenched in any of these communities that there's actually a spectrum. Certain vegans that allow this, certain animal-based diets that allow this, certain keto diets that allow this, and then, oh my God, we have the subsets like dirty carnivore, dirty keto. There's really no clear set of rules and no clear path for what you're looking for when you label yourself, I am this. It's not incredibly black and white. Even you don't have a clear path for what you're trying to achieve that way. While communities can be really helpful, it's also a place where people love to shame other people. We start to create this holier than thou, self-righteous mentality. It's a lot of we're better because we do XYZ. Or I've seen a lot of posts where people are in one Facebook group for one diet, but then they'll post how they're trolling another Facebook group for a different diet, right? Like they just have all the time in the world to sit there and essentially make fun of other people's diet choices. And so that's where we start to get into trouble. We've identified I am this, and then because I am this, it means I am better than you. And that's a problem. That's not only going to cause division for people that you don't even know on the internet, but it's also going to cause division amongst people that you may actually call friends. You may find yourself judging other people based on what they're eating for lunch because you're around all these voices that say to you, these people are dumb, these people are bad, these people are the problem with society. You just create create these huge gaps of division. You can even get shame in your own community. I referenced before how there's not really a linear path. Like when you say a specific diet, you think it sounds specific, but let me tell you, there's a lot of gray area. And I've actually seen this a lot. I have two examples. I've seen an example where people have posted in a carnivore community and they've posted like a picture of their breakfast, right? And they're like, here's my breakfast. It's eggs, it's bacon, and it's a couple little burger patties, right? But they have like a cup of coffee on the side. Instead of people being encouraging and saying, oh my gosh, so great, like healthy way to start the day, woohoo, way to stay on track, you'll have a bunch of people comment on the coffee because they're not being carnivore enough for certain people. A post that that person was proud of, that person was trying to get some uplifting comments from, was trying to like help keep them on the right track, now they just feel crappy about. I've seen it in the vegan community where people have been like, I can enjoy a vegan meal with friends, post a picture of it, and then you have a bunch of comments where people are like, do you know they fry stuff in the same fryers? You can't eat those French fries. There's just this sense of it's never good enough. In the communities, it's never enough. And you feel like you're trying so hard to do this new thing, so hard to try this new way of eating, and you're still messing up. It's still not good enough. And that's a really negative outlook and a really negative result of these communities. You also just create this sense of shame for yourself. So you just run into multiple issues like this. I've seen people post about burgers they eat, and other people say that's cooked in seed oil or that's not grass-fed. You get it from both ends of the spectrum. And the problem with that, what starts to happen is we start to become obsessed with what is allowed instead of versus what you need. Your diet ends up becoming this like popularity contest for you. Like it's way more important to be in this community and be accepted in this community than maybe be your best, healthiest self. Or it's way more important to impress people in this community than it is to potentially experiment with incorporating some other food in that may actually make you feel better. A lot of times, people have really negative outcomes that are just being justified by the community. People completely ignore any negative outcome, and we end up with this cult-like mentality, us versus them. If you say that you have any kind of negative symptom, you become them. Even if you're in the group of whatever, the vegans, the carnivores, paleo, keto, you become them if you mention that you have a negative outcome. This creates stress and anxiety about making choices for fear of being ostracized. And you're scared about what your social circle may think because you've been so adamant about proclaiming that you are blank diet. Well, I can't change my diet because what will people think on social media? I know that this happens because that was a big fear of mine. I was vegan for 12 years. I got really sick. Part of the reason that I was scared to change, I'll admit, was what are people gonna think when they see pictures of steak on my Instagram and me enjoying it? What are people gonna think when I don't post vegan propaganda anymore? And that's actually a real fear that people have, and it holds them back from living their healthiest life. All of these negative community outcomes can lead to orthorexia, disordered eating, and wanting to feel accepted rather than wanting to feel your best, which is why you probably started the diet in the first place. So this is how we should be looking at the food that we eat. First of all, I don't love the word diet. I prefer to call it way of eating, but diet is synonymous with way of eating, so that's why I think it's used interchangeably. But I prefer to say I follow a protein-forward diet. I follow a veggie-forward diet. I follow a fat-forward diet. Chances are, since there is such a gray area, like we've said, even if you tell someone you're vegan, you're keto, you're paleo, they're still not really gonna know what you eat. You're still gonna have to explain a little bit. Again, because everybody's definition is a little bit different. So instead of having these labels, I am vegan, it's much better to say, I follow a really veggie-forward diet. No one is gonna really care or remember what you order at a restaurant. People are so much more concerned about themselves. If you go out in public and you have lunch with friends, you order a salad, or you order hamburger patties, I guarantee you no one is really going to be as concerned as you think they are with your lunch order. You are concerned. You are concerned because you've been conditioned to believe that some things are bad and some things are good, and based on other people's judgments, people are going to judge you based on what you put on your plate. And let me tell you something. If you ever run into somebody like that, or somebody does judge you for what you are putting on your plate, instead of asking you questions about how you got there, or why you make certain choices, or how this type of food is positively affecting you, then you probably don't need to be at lunch with them anymore. We need to be willing to adjust our diet based on symptoms and based on timing. You may be on a particular way of eating right now, and it may have been really great for doing a lot of things. I find when people switch from sort of like, I eat anything, to I'm gonna go on any strict way of eating or more concise way of eating, normally they get positive benefits right off the bat. And that's just because they can't go grab some potato chips from the gas station most of the time. You know, it's putting you more in tune with what you're eating. You have to be a little more mindful about it. And so almost anytime you switch to a new way of eating, there's going to be some positive effects. And while I think that can be good, we need to be aware that the way of eating that we're on right now may not work for us long term. It's really important that we pay attention to symptoms that we're having and really be honest about those symptoms and adjust our diets from there. We also really need to be looking at science as opposed to what someone hot is telling us on Instagram. I'm not saying that you can't look at the hot influencers, but what I am saying is it's nice to have some sort of science to back things up. If there's no science there, it's probably not a good idea to start doing that thing, especially if you're already doing that thing and you don't feel like your best self. We should approach our way of eating with curiosity. What you eat isn't who you are. Food should be looked at as fuel to make you an amazing human being, not an activity that ostracizes people. Let me know in the comments below if diet labels have impacted you. What choices did you make to overcome that? I want to hear your stories, the good, the bad, and everything in between. Thanks for watching. If you want more simple, straightforward health advice, please subscribe to my channel. My goal is always to help you thrive in a world that is set up to sell you the idea of health by people who still feel unhealthy. Remember that you are in control of your health. It just might take changing everything you thought you knew to get to where you want to be.